Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, Shifting the Lens. We are your okay.
Water for everyone. I'll do it. Let me
No,
do it. All right, bro.
Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast, Shifting the Lens. We are your hosts, Simone.
And so,
We just want to welcome you to this first episode of a podcast that we created together, a brother and sister. We really are people who enjoy film and books and writing and just creating overall. And we wanted to create this platform just to discuss our thoughts and opinions about the different modes of artistic expression, specifically books, articles, and film. So we are so excited to begin recording this first episode, and we'll just go ahead and get into a little bit about why we started this and, the meaning of the name.
okay, so basically, Simone came up with shifting the lens, and we were like trying to figure out a name. Originally, we had drowning in ink, but wasn't really vibing with that. It was kind of negative, and we wanted something that kind of coincided with the feeling of diving into a different world and changing your perspective when you do read books, but also like from a film perspective too, because like there'll be podcast episodes and moments where we will talk about film. So shifting the lens is very appropriate for that because, as you may or may not know, what a camera does, you change the lens, it changes the focal length. So I'm into photography a lot. And so, like, for example, if you have a 50 millimeter lens, it's going to be a lot tighter of a shot. So it's more closer in. The higher the number, the closer the shot. And the lower the number, the more widespread the shot. So if you had like a 18 millimeter lens, it's more of a landscape. But I mean, that's a lot more than probably what you care about. But yeah, that's why
we're interested.
Yeah, that's why we started the podcast.
Yeah, and shifting the lens, I think, also represents kind of looking at life in general from a different perspective. And with the movies, TV, visual arts, and books being some of the modes of conveying messages to the masses that are so impactful to the world today, especially the younger generation. We just wanted to combine, our, not expertise, but our worldview and our interpretation, and also including truth in it, because a lot of these methods, as much as they're entertaining and they're beautiful, a lot of hidden messages are found in storytelling. And that can be used for good or bad purposes. So shifting the lens is just another way, an alternative perspective, a deeper look into the realm of storytelling, the realm of film and words. So,
Amen.
Yeah. So I guess let's start off with, how are you doing, brother? What kind of energy are you bringing to the platform today and just for yourself overall?
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm very hopeful for this new chapter of content creation. I always get like a large burst of energy when I do start something new. Just like researching it and like figuring out like the nuances and like the subtleties behind just podcasting in general. Although my channel is just talking, like when you're doing a podcast between two people, there's more involved, and so that kind of like childlike curiosity is what I'm bringing to this interview. Not interview. This is what I'm bringing to this podcast. Yeah,
I'm excited as well. Sometimes it's hard for me to sit down and create, especially when I'm overwhelmed with just my own day-to-day life and thoughts and emotions, and it can be hard to just be in solitude and, be accountable to just create. So having a platform where I can talk, because I love to talk,
Yep.
and be with my brother, and it's just really nice, I think. And I'm very excited to see how far this will go, because I know that the Most High will bless it. And yeah, otherwise today I'm feeling good right now. I would say that maybe earlier today I wasn't feeling my best, and but I'm feeling better now, so that's good, and I think it's important to bring authenticity to whatever you're creating. So I don't want to pretend to ever be okay if I'm not, but still show up. So I think this will be a great exercise to do that, being more accountable and
Yeah.
keeping commitments. So those are some things that I'm looking forward to with this. But so I guess we should get started. The topic for today that we both wanted to talk about, we'll do one for movies as well, but today we're going to do books. And basically, why are you a reader? Why do you read? Why do you love books? So the first question we had for each other was, what kind of reader are you?
Okay, I can start. So I, as you already know, like I grew up not liking to read. I honestly like kind of hated it. I don't think it was the fact of just reading in general. It's just like it was always something that I was forced to do, whether it was like at home or like through like school and like summer reading and stuff. So and the type of content that I was being forced to read wasn't anything that interests me for the most part. So I had an abrasion toward, not abrasion, was it aversion towards reading when I was younger. But when I got a little bit older, and obviously like now in adulthood, where I enjoy reading, I started back reading mainly to improve my vocabulary and become a better writer. So reading just like, especially novels, it like helps me expand my imagination. So the type of reader that I am, um, I don't know, like adjectives
Like,
or like,
I guess when I say like, what kind of reader are you? I think I was thinking of when you sit down with a book, or what,
like how do I read or like,
yeah, like, are you I think you're a physical book
oh
type of
yeah, oh, okay,
person,
that's what you
and
meant.
I
Yeah.
think also do you read out loud in your head?
Ah, okay.
What kind of
Yeah.
reading
Yeah,
reader?
physical books. I used to read books on my iPad like every now and then, but
Hmm.
I like physical copies. I like just the act of turning the page, seeing how much I have left, like stuff like that. I recently I've been reading a lot while listening to like brown noise. It's
Hmm.
helpful. I
Yeah,
don't read out loud. I read way slower out loud. I'm already a slow reader, so that's a no for me.
there are no slow readers. Everyone has
I
their own
mean,
pace.
I read at a slower pace. How about that? I
Okay.
read at a slower pace. So yeah, that's the type of reader that I am. And I also, um, when I read, since I have such a vast imagination, like I will imagine being there. I won't imagine
Hmm.
myself as a character. It's more of like I'm reading the script to a movie. I'm just letting it
Same.
play out in my head.
Yeah.
So yeah. What about you?
Um, kind of reader am I? I definitely am someone, I have to be in a quiet place. I'm not a public reader in any
Hmm.
sense of the word. I have to be in a room alone, or if I'm with someone else, they too are doing something silent. I find that I can get easily distracted. So I need very little stimulation when I'm reading in terms of outside,
So
like
like
dopamine hits
brown
and
noises and
stuff.
stuff wouldn't work for you.
No, I like brown noise, and I can do instrumental, but not anything too hype. So it
Like
couldn't be like tight beats,
oh no, like
or
lo-fi. I couldn't do that
yeah,
either.
or even like intense Beethoven or
So it has to
Mozart.
be something consistent, like a consistent sound. Like,
Yeah, like a fan or
okay,
brown noise,
okay.
or silence. Um, I typically don't read out loud unless it's a passage I read that was so profound I want to say it out loud, but
Hmm.
I read to myself.
Yeah.
I fluctuate between liking reading Kindle books or physical books. It just
Mm-hmm.
depends on the mood I'm in and the season of life.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm in a reading slump, I prefer to read books on my Kindle because it allows me to kind of not swipe, but it's almost kind of like that with like a phone, like swiping. So the pages go by a little faster and I can kind of get more into the story
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes books have a slow start. So I can get faster into the story at a quicker pace, if that makes sense.
Why does reading on the Kindle make you read faster if it's the same amount of words?
Because it has like, there's not that much words on a Kindle page because a Kindle typically is smaller than a book.
Yeah.
So it's not going to have as many words. So you're kind of having that motion of swiping.
Oh, okay.
And like when you're swiping, you kind of lose track of how
So,
fast
like,
you're doing that.
So you're basically tricking your brain into thinking you're reading more at once than you really are.
Yeah. And because also the method that you're reading it with. When you're reading a physical book, I feel like, at least for me,
Mhm.
I'm forced to slow down and read the words from like left to right.
Yeah.
And I'm still reading on a Kindle. I wouldn't say that I'm skimming. I don't skim my books.
Mm-hmm.
But that eye coordination movement
Yeah.
is a little bit more similar to being on your phone. And when
Mhm.
you're on your phone reading something, you are kind of, a lot of us, we do kind of skim.
Skim it, yeah.
So like Kindle, I'm not skimming, but it's a little bit faster than reading a physical book. So,
I mean, I think for me, when I read in my head, I don't read every word.
oh,
Like
you don't?
naturally. But
I heard a lot of
if I
people are
do,
like that,
if
yeah.
I am reading every word, I'm not acknowledging every word.
Oh, okay.
I'm just looking at it.
You're just looking at
Because, like, you know, like, I don't know if you, like, I can hear myself reading in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because, like, if I'm, like, reading a sentence, the only words that, like, I'll actually, like, notice are, like, words that aren't, like, simple. Like, it, was, and.
Okay.
So, like, I'm reading it. I'm not skimming it. But, like,
Yeah.
it's just going so fast that I'm not even, like, kind of recognizing it said and.
Do you think that's different for you if it's like fiction versus nonfiction? Because I feel like with me, I feel the same way with fiction books. But with nonfiction, I feel like I do read every single word.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but maybe that's...
Yeah.
It's like I read them slower, too.
Yeah. Nonfiction, I definitely read every word. Because I guess in my brain, I'm like, well, this is
Trying to
like,
learn.
really important. Yeah, I'm trying to learn. You're not, like, picturing a story. I think that's also part of the reason why, like, it's harder for me to read nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had to be really interested. Like, it had to be about, like, mermaids or giants or something.
Yeah.
I couldn't... Like, even, and we'll probably get into this, but, like, even, like, a lot of self-help books, like, I think when I first got on my journey of, like, trying to better myself, I was, like, into that, but I'm not really into self-help anymore.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
It's just, I feel like a lot of help actually comes from fiction books and
Oh, yeah,
fantasy.
sure.
If you're really just paying attention and not just reading just to get through the book, and you're invested in the story, you can actually learn a lot of lessons. And to me, we'll get into this as well a little bit more, but I think fantasy is some of the most nonfiction stories out there. But
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
that kind of segues into what books are you reading right now, if any?
Okay, so we're actually reading a book together. It's
Mhm.
called The Parable of the Sower. Brief overview. It's basically a dystopian novel that a black author named Octavia Butler, she wrote years ago. And the premise of the book is like, like world ending, and it's very, very close to like how the times are now. So that's the one we're currently reading together. And I'm also reading a book called I'm Thinking About Ending Things. By author Ian something, I don't remember his last name, but like it's basically like a story about this girl and her boyfriend, and they go to like their parents for like a vacation, and like weird stuff happens. But I'm like
Is it
literally
horror?
it said
Thriller?
thriller. It said more of a
Okay.
thriller. Yeah, and there's also a Netflix adaptation I'm gonna watch after reading it.
Yeah,
So
that's dope.
yeah.
I like when books have adaptations. Just, I don't always watch them, but just knowing that, especially if I really, really enjoyed the book, knowing that I can kind of watch or immerse myself in another form of the story is like cool to look forward to. But what I'm reading, Parable of the Sower, I'm also reading several books at one time. A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. It's a nonfiction book. But it's not, it's not really self-help. If I'm going to read
More
nonfiction,
spiritual.
yeah, I like more like spiritual, books about healing. And I think I tend to also, if I'm going to read something nonfiction, I tend to read books that speak to a situation that I'm going through at the moment, or
Mm-hmm.
something I feel like I need. And
Yeah.
lately I have been really seeking to return to love and to feel loved and to love others more, and overall to see how God loves us. I think that's something that I never quite felt or understood or maybe fully accepted. So I'm kind of on a journey right now to feel the love of God in every situation, and
Mm-hmm.
this book has been helping me to see how love really is the only thing that is real and present in life,
Yeah.
especially in a world where, how ironic because we were talking about stories, but especially in a world where so many things are illusory, and it can get to your mind. So I've been reading that. I'm reading Parable of the Sower, and I'm also reading the Bible from the beginning again. I'm in
Yeah, me
Leviticus right
too.
now.
Me too.
So yeah, that's kind of what
I
I'm
would,
reading.
just to go back to what you
Hmm.
said earlier about the fiction being better and more like self-helpy than
Yeah.
self-help, is that, like, for example, not to like dog on any self-help books, but like, for example, like, Atomic Habits was mainly about like building good habits to become a better person.
Yep.
But that's just one aspect of self-help. It doesn't talk about your relationship with God. It doesn't talk about like inner work or anything. It's just more of like building habits. But with fiction, you can read a fiction story and it can give you like 10 different self-help
Hmm.
things to do or takeaways from just one character. And then if you include a few other main characters that have their own vices and issues and problems, and you
Yeah.
see how they develop, that's even more.
Yeah.
Because obviously self-help books aren't, they're written in third person, like narrator form, but there's barely any other characters unless the person that's writing the book is talking about like someone else in their life
Yeah.
or an example. But with fiction books, it's better that way because the characters, you can translate them to like real people in your life that you know or yourself,
Hmm.
and then like that's how you like grow. Like, for example, I would say The Hobbit. You read The Hobbit, right?
Yeah, for the Hobbit.
Yeah, like The Hobbit, many different characters in that story. But Bilbo, for example, he was someone that was very timid and he didn't like to come out of his shell. But he met, he knew about Gandalf and met him and the
Hmm.
dwarves, and you just
Went
see
on an
how
adventure.
he went on an adventure, and you just see how his progression changed in his mindset. And so
Yeah.
many things happen within that story. Dope book, you should read it. That you can actually take away. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially stories that are very character driven. I think those are the ones. Because
yeah,
not all fantasy or fiction is going to, like, help you
yeah,
learn
like
lessons. It really just depends on
erotic
if there's
romance.
actually. You can still learn from that, what not to do.
I don't know.
Or, I don't know, maybe some people need some tips. So,
I don't know.
but yeah, I guess it really just depends on how you like your stories and how best do you receive information. Because
Hmm.
there are some people who are going to read fantasy fiction and not get anything that we
Anything
may get
from it?
from
Yeah.
books. It might just purely entertainment and completely detached from the story, which is fine. That's great.
Uh,
And nonfiction is something that speaks more to their situation because it's practical and it says
mm.
step 1, 2, 3,
Yeah,
4,
yeah.
go do this. And sometimes we need that. And we don't always want to like read between the lines or learn from someone else. We just want someone to speak directly to our situation. So, and that's the beauty of books in all their various forms. The fact that we have so many different options: fantasy, realistic fiction, contemporary fiction, classics, science fiction, horror,
Hmm.
thrillers,
Yeah.
biographies.
Yeah.
There's just so many different types of books. So I guess what initially, we kind of already talked about this earlier, but what initially got you into reading?
So like several years ago, I was like right before the pandemic, I was getting into poetry again, and I'm like, not to like gas myself up or anything, but like I'm naturally good at poetry,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to be able to expound on my, and short stories, but I wanted to be able to expound on my, I guess, like developing the character more and just having like a greater imagination. And although like I like watching movies, I do know that reading helps, not just from the aspect of being able to develop the character and the story and make it deeper and like have it broken down better, but like you learn more words, like more vocabulary increase. So like I didn't start learning, you can burp, bro, it's fine. I'll cut it out.
Oh.
I didn't start learning for the, just because I wanted to start reading again. It wasn't that. I said I'm gonna learn to. I'm not learning to read. I said learn to read. I already know how to read.
Oh.
Not learn to read. I wanted to just start reading so I could become a better writer. That was basically it. And then afterwards, I realized that you can read what, like, I mean, I'm not in school anymore, so you can read whatever you want to read, and there's so many books out there for every type of interest, and that was like my segue into like actually reading because I want to, not just for like the fact of becoming a better writer. So
yeah. And then also I begged you for years to join the reading.
Yeah, she did.
Like to join the reading world. I was like, please, can I not be alone in this?
Yeah.
But
That's facts.
yeah, I would say I had a very early start to reading. I remember from being a very young girl. I don't remember when I first picked up a book on my own and started reading it, but I remember enjoying going to the library as a kid. And
I hated that,
I loved picking out books. I think I've always loved immersing myself into a world. Not necessarily a world of my own choosing, but, just a world where I could be a part of a group or a family and feel like I'm in that story. And especially as someone who was quite shy growing up and I didn't have many friends and not many other hobbies. I didn't play sports or anything or draw or anything like that. So books were like my escape, but not necessarily in a bad way. I can't remember if at that young age if I was trying to escape anything, but
what age did you get into reading?
I just remember being very young.
Under
So
12?
Probably 112.
Under 12.
Oh, yeah, probably. We were living here, so maybe like 10. When do you
10.
start being able?
10.
When do you start being able to like really read books beyond like Olivia's? What's that story? I had the pig Olivia or whatever.
Bro, that's beyond, like a 2-year-old's book.
Yeah, beyond those books, what age are you like really getting?
Like, I mean, it depends
like
on
10?
How smart you are. I would say 9, maybe 9 or 10.
Yeah. Okay, I know I read like Charlotte's Web and Little Women and A Little Princess, like stuff like that. So Secret Garden. I had Narnia books.
How old were you when you read Count Monte Cristo? You in high school?
I must have been in high school, maybe a freshman. It was like a summer we were home, and I just read it. Was
it hard to read? 'Cause that book.
I think it was quite hard, and many of it.
What was going on?
But a lot of stuff I did not understand. I just kept reading because it was definitely beyond my, not necessarily reading level, but more so the depth of the story. I didn't have that.
Yet
I didn't have like that awareness. So to me, I'm like, okay, this happened, but I didn't really fully understand the story.
Yeah.
So I would say that's what initially got me into reading. Just, I don't know why. I just took onto it and I loved it. And books have been my friends ever since. It's been a tumultuous relationship because
you buy them and don't read them.
No, there are two hobbies: buying books and reading books, and I have a hobby for both.
She buys more of them and reads less of them.
I like to look at them, and when I'm ready, because I am a mood reader, I will pick up a book. A lot of books that have had the most impact on me are books that I bought a while ago and didn't need until the situation arose. I was like, oh, I have a book for that. And then I read it, like A Return to Love. A few years ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to.
I can relate to that because like there's a lot, because like I'm really into tech, so there's like a lot of like little things that I'll buy that I'll be like I need to use this for something, and then I'll buy it and it may not work, but then later on it comes in handy. Like I'm that type of person where it's like I'll have like that tiny little screw that needs to fit into this one thing.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, so I guess I understand that from that perspective.
Yeah. Because sometimes you don't even, you like subconsciously know that you might need something,
Yeah.
but you don't consciously know it.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I'll just get this. And maybe it was to, fill a
Yeah.
void at the time or something.
Yeah.
But I think your spirit always knows what you
it's
need.
like it's like I'll buy something and then let's say like it doesn't work. Most of the time, if something I buy doesn't work, I'll take it back. But there's sometimes where I'll still
that you'll
keep it because I'm like, this is
Yeah.
actually useful for something else. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
know
take
what.
books back.
Yeah, I don't think I have either, unless it was like. Actually, I don't think I've ever taken a book back.
Yeah, if I ever have taken a book back, it's because I knew it was just too expensive
Or
when
it
I
was
bought
faulty, like something in it.
it. Yeah, but usually no. Usually I'm intentional about what I buy in the first place, so I don't need to take it back.
And would you say that you buy most of your books on Amazon or through Barnes and Nobles?
Most of the books I have are probably from Amazon at this point. I started off, books as gifts as a kid. Then I went to like Barnes and Noble, the Book Lady, and then it started to be Amazon. Like when book buying became, shout out to the Book Lady. When Amazon became, or when book buying became a hobby, because it wasn't always a hobby. Reading actually used to just be the hobby, because I didn't have the means to just purchase books.
And you were bringing it back to the library.
Yeah.
So you didn't own it.
Even the books that were gifts, it was just I cherished that one book. That was all I had, and I read that, and I was thankful. But, when you get a little bit more funds and you can actually have the privilege to buy your own books, that's when book buying became a hobby. So that's when Amazon came into play. But I guess now that, we kind of talked about what initially got us into reading. So why would you say you are a reader now? Because I know for myself, I mentioned earlier how I said I have a tumultuous relationship with reading, which to the audience might not make sense if I'm talking about how I loved reading so much growing up. But there was a period of time where I feel like I just could not finish a book. And that lasted for a few years. I would start books and not finish them, and I just could not understand why I couldn't get into the stories. I didn't care about the characters, anything like that. And books and stories have kind of been with me on this healing journey, because sometimes it's easy maybe to just escape into something when life is hard. But then sometimes you don't even have the energy for that. Life can, for many of us, can get so overwhelming and feel so much that you feel like you're just living in your mind, and there's nothing that can ease that turmoil or those trials. And I felt like that's kind of what I was going through. I was just so discombobulated mentally that I couldn't even delve into a story. And then on top of that, just the constant overconsumption from social media, because that can be a video for itself about how social media changes our brains and how we interact with real physical, real life things. Because I feel like having been, before I started monitoring my screen time, being someone who used to maybe scroll a lot for hours and stuff, that impacted my ability to pay attention to things. And as someone who's already naturally easily distracted, you can imagine how it was just really difficult to just be focused on one task. So I would say I read now because I'm grateful for it. I don't take books for granted, or stories for granted, or words for granted, because having lived a few more years of life since I initially started reading, I've realized the impact that words can have on you and how they can shape your life and change you. Not just the words that you read in books, but the words that you write down, the words that you say. So I'm very careful with my habit of reading, and I'm more intentional about it. And I understand that this is not just some fickle, this is not just for fun for me. This is something that has a lasting impact on my life. So what about you? Why do you read now?
I would say that one of the things that, like, when I'm reading, I'm also thinking about, because like I like will take like mental notes, and like, you know, like as an artist you steal ideas because all ideas are recycled from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I'm reading, I'm taking like mental notes of things that I would like to include in stories that I haven't read. So like for like poems or short stories that I would want to read in the future, I read now just for partially for the idea of then writing my own stories that I've been wanting to read, but they're just not out there. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the beauty in art, is like when you see something or you don't see something that you want to exist, just create it yourself if you have the means to do so.
Yeah.
And also just, you know, from the perspective of like just like that world building aspect and like improving my vocabulary and my imagination, because I'm also into film. Books help because
Yeah.
again I see them as like movie scripts. So whenever I have like a film idea, I can pull from movies, or I can also pull from like a
From
book that I
books. Yeah.
read that I enjoyed and stuff like that. So yeah, and I also think that like, you know, like you'll read some books and like certain characters you'll gravitate towards more.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes obviously like, you know, like the Bible is like the main source of
For
like,
us. Yeah.
yeah, but sometimes you'll read a book and the character in the book might be going through something that you might have experienced, or they
Mm-hmm.
might have had an ideology or thought that you're thinking now.
Yeah.
And if you really resonated with that book, you know, like playing out their world through your world kind of helps a little bit, like get through
That's
certain
interesting. I've
things.
never actually thought of that.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Wow. I've always seen like book characters as like friends, but friends whom I felt distant from because we're in different worlds. I
Mm.
never thought to kind of emulate, how they lived their life or maybe what their thought process was. I think because I read, I'm so immersed in the story, I'm not even thinking about my own life. I'm so lost in that world. But that's a great idea to kind of maybe come out of their world a little bit
Hmm.
and come into yours and kind
Yeah,
of merge the two so
yeah,
that you can feel as if it's not, you know what I mean? So it
yeah,
doesn't feel
yeah. I get
so
what you mean.
escapism, but more so like, hey, this can actually help me. So I guess that also kind of segues into the next question about how reading has influenced your perspective on life and changed how you see the world. I mean, we've touched this a little bit,
Yeah,
but what would you
I would
say to
say that
that?
like, you know, like you read books, various different books from different genres. I would say that I think like adapting into the, well, not adapting, but like I would say that like in certain situations, it's cool to bring out like a character of yourself
Mm-hmm.
that's not like it's you, but it's like a different version
Version.
of you,
Yeah.
right? And you know that you're into that character. You don't have like a disorder or nothing. It's just like you like tap into that character when you're like in a certain environment or you're around certain people.
Yeah.
And for me, I do that really like to help maintain my peace,
Mm.
and also just to kind of like bring a little bit more fun to an ordinary situation. You know what I'm saying? And I think that books reading helps with that because you get way more insight on various characters. And with a movie, you can do that as well, but books go way more in depth.
Details.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they often, like, which is helpful, which most books do, they include aspects of the character's thinking. So like if a book is narrated by the actual character, like it's in first person, that helps a lot. In a movie, it's not really the case. You have to visually see what they may be thinking, unless the movie is like narrated. But those movies are kind of weird.
What?
Like movies where like the person's like experiencing something, and then you can actually hear the audio of their thinking thoughts.
Oh.
I mean, they're cool, but
I haven't seen any like that, I don't
I've
think.
seen short films like that. I don't really
Okay.
like that style, but
Yeah.
books, that's natural, you
Yeah.
know. So would you say
I
that?
prefer that actually for books to be in first or second person,
So would you
I
say that
think.
most books are in first person or third person, like fiction books?
I think it depends. There's various for each. Because sometimes you have books that's just told from one character's perspective, but then you have books like The Hobbit or
That
The
was
Lord of
third
the
person.
Rings, where there isn't a
Yeah,
singular character who the book is about.
I mean
Maybe
it's about
Bilbo.
Bilbo, but not truly.
Yeah, because
It's about him until he meets other people, and then like other people.
yeah, like it'll the way Tolkien writes, it's like he's able to tell you what the character is thinking, but also not have them be the narrator.
Yeah, it's all in third
Yeah.
person. Oh.
So, at least from what The Hobbit, I haven't read the other books, so I don't know for sure the Lord of the Rings series, but I would say that reading has influenced my perspective on life throughout my entire reading journey in different ways. I think reading definitely helps me to maintain my peace, but it also, especially because I really love romance books and fantasy books, I think I take those ideals into my standards for life and for other people. So, like, some people will be like saying, "Oh, relationships they're not fairy tales," and I would be like, "Well, why not? Why can't there be a fairy godmother? Why can't there be a someone that is so close to you that they will come and help you whatever you need?" Like,
And you know why? Like this is like low key deep, but I don't mean to cut
what?
you off, but you know why they say that, though, right?
What, that life can't be like a fairy tale
Yeah,
because they have a fear mindset?
true. That's like the main part, but also because from just the word fairy tale, which to me isn't like a true word, it's more of like a false word. From youth, you were told to believe if something was a fairy tale, it was something that could never happen. I think that type of ideology forces you to, like you said, shrink your mindset and think that those things aren't only meant in movies. So therefore, you live a more mundane life.
Right. It's like when people tell you as a child that like you should be afraid of snakes or something.
Yeah.
So you grow up, even if you never encounter it,
Yeah.
you are afraid that a snake might like kill, which it could, but you're afraid a snake might bite you or kill you without ever having actually seen one or experienced one. You just heard that. So it's like with our books and being told, these are children's tales, these are fairy tales, this is magic. You, like you said, you come to this realization that that is that world and your world is what's real. When in many ways, I personally feel like it's flipped. And so
Yeah.
that's why how reading has changed my perspective is like a lot of fantasy or fiction, what other people might see as like, girl, that's impossible. I actually see that as acts of faith and ways for miracles to happen in your life.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously some aspects of a book, I'm not expecting, myself to ride on a dragon and go on a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
But a Cinderella story can happen. I personally believe that wholeheartedly. I don't think that's so far-fetched.
What aspect of Cinderella?
The entire thing. Well, I think the first aspect of how hard it was for her life, that's someone many of us can relate to. Being in a relationship or a family dynamic where it's unsupportive, maybe even abusive, and you feel as if, all hope is lost. But Cinderella always kept her spirits up. Even when she had moments of sadness, I don't think, I mean, granted, I know it was a children's movie, but still, we never really saw her go into despair, which is very hopeful because it's like, wow, this girl experienced like the worst kind of abuse. Like, this is her house, her father's house. Her mother is dead, and this woman and her,
not even related to her, and they're running things like they run the show.
Woman and her diabolical half sisters come in and just take over and then cast her aside. When at one point we can assume that Cinderella lived in wealth and opulence and comfort and luxury because that house is quite large.
Yeah.
But then
She became the maid.
her dad goes away, and now
dies. Did he die?
I don't know if he died. Maybe he did die.
I think he did die.
Yeah, maybe he died after a few years. Yeah. So they were probably all living together in wealth and stuff, and then he dies, and the stepmom and the stepsisters like cast her off like she's a servant and a slave. And even then, that doesn't change her character. And the fact that someone came along a fairy godmother. I haven't read or watched the movie in a long time, so I don't know all the full details, but a
Just
fairy
around the same
godmother
thing.
came around and with magic, supposedly, right? Because maybe it wasn't magic, maybe these were miracles. And she just granted her access to be able to change her life. And sometimes we just need a drop or a whole bucket of kindness to just be poured over us. And look how love in that aspect changes your whole perspective in your whole life. Because now Cinderella would eventually meet the prince and marry him, and he would change her whole life because
Yeah,
she would be, it's almost like the story of Job. She got everything double. She
pretty
literally
much. Yeah,
became
and
like
then
a princess.
did they leave the house? They had to like leave.
What do you mean?
Oh wait, no, she left them. She went
Yeah.
to live with him.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah,
she lived in a castle, better life than she ever had,
yeah,
more someone who truly loved her for herself.
yeah.
And I mean, and someone might say like, "What? They don't even know each other. They just met." Like
Yeah,
her
I'm one
shoe
of those
just,
someones.
her shoe just, the shoe just
You're,
happened to fit on her foot. But I'm like,
yeah,
why not? People have relationships of love at first sight. That's basically what
yeah,
that was, kind of, right?
yeah. Kind of not. I don't know. But I'll also say that a lot of fairy tale stories, they're. I think it's split into two things. I think one, it's a story just for entertainment for like a lot of people, but I also think that a lot of these fairy tale stories is an ode to those who like truly have like a childlike spirit and see the world past what it is. It's like a reminder to those people that like what you think in your mind is not as far fetched as you seem, and it is
Yeah.
possible through those stories. That's why like people like us, we relate to like those types of stories,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone that may just read it and be like, oh, it's a good story, and then they move on to their
Right.
boring,
It helps you
unfulfilled
to see
life.
the best in life, the best possible outcomes, which
Yeah,
I think is something the world at large direly needs. You know,
yeah,
with so much negativity around all the time, like why can't we just see the best or hope for the best?
yeah,
It's faith, really.
yeah.
Faith in something beyond yourself. And I think maybe that's a lot of the reasonings. I know this is getting off of from books, but
No,
to
it's good.
end, to kind of wrap up with our podcast, the first episode, I think a lot of the reasoning why we cast aside some of these stories as things that could never happen is because we depend on ourselves to bring about our own success and
Mm.
solely on ourselves. So we are God unto ourselves versus trusting in the Most High that He is actually the one that provides. And if He can create everything,
Hmm.
or He did create everything,
Yeah,
even your mind that made these stories up, who even had the ability to write these stories, then why couldn't these things also happen in your life? Because how would you even have the ability to write a fairy tale
exactly.
if
That
it
means
couldn't happen?
it means it, in someone's life, in some way, those things happen. It may have been embellished a little bit, but like it actually happened. That's also
Yeah.
like how like when you're reading the Bible, you can two people can go into it deeper. Like someone, because like I feel like you do have to have a great amount of faith and a childlike spirit to
Mm-hmm.
fully dive into the Bible. Because there's a lot of stories that are like and even like a lot of people, some people that like will try to interpret it a certain way because if they try to interpret it maybe the way that it's portraying, it sounds a little too far-fetched, so
Right.
they flatten it,
Yeah.
and like I feel like people just do that in general, like in their everyday life. Like you, like why can't you go on an adventure today? Like well, why must everything be like I have to do this first and this, like why does it have to be like that,
So, like, strict
yeah, like so strict, like
and like
yeah,
packaged.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah, that's why I guess overall, while we both love books and stories so much,
yeah,
they allow you to roam
flow,
freely,
yeah,
be
exactly,
whatever you want, do whatever you want. You're literally just along for the ride with the author and
yeah,
the characters.
facts.
And there's something so freeing about that. And I think maybe many of us, even those who don't really read books, wish for their lives to be that way, to just be free. So,
Yeah. That first
yeah.
episode was good.
Thank you everyone for watching, for listening, because you can't see us. Um,
Yet.
but yet, hint, hint. But very, very grateful for this monumental time in history. Just to be able to create, and hopefully this was impactful for all of you and will inspire you to, in your own way, maybe pick up a book or delve into a story and just be free.
Just be free.
All right.
That's what's up.
Peace.
Peace.